Markets look set to sell off as Donald Trump imposes the steepest U.S. import levies in a century.
I don't think there's a single positive take on this. This is all just bad.
Stock set to wipe out nearly $2 trillion in market value.
Taking a plunge as investors react to the sweeping tariffs.
The world was yesterday sort of bracing for a bazooka. But Trump decided he was going to go the Chicago way, and he dropped an economic Moab.
And they are going to turn it upside down, and I think 50-50 into a recession.
Donald Trump has severely impacted our economy, and at this point, it's hard for even him to deny given how obvious it has become. While I don't think he's particularly bright, it's difficult to ignore the mounting signs of a failing economy. Markets crashing, recession fears rising, and tens of thousands of people losing their jobs. It's clear that he's aware of the mess he's created, and now he's openly panicking. His latest post on Truth Social reveals just how much he realizes it's slipping away from him, especially after China retaliated against his tariffs. Let's dive into that meltdown. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me now. Before we get into China's response to Donald Trump's tariffs and his panic post, I want to hear what Donald Trump thought China would do just yesterday.
Comment about TikTok. You said that the Chinese might be willing to agree to approve that sale in exchange for tariff relief. Is that something that you've floated to them or you've heard from them? Or
no, I'm just using that as an example. Okay. Let's say we had a problem with TikTok, and let's say China wasn't going to approve. We could use tariffs in order to get it approved. You know,
the deadline is
you give them
Saturday.
something in return.
What's the update on the deal negotiations for
We
TikTok?
have. We're very close to a deal with a very good group of people. For TikTok.
Larry Ellison and Oracle?
Is it multiple investors? Just
Multiple.
And then did the last minute bids kind of throw things into disarray for you, or do you have your strategy completely locked up on who's going to...
Which last minute?
On acquiring TikTok.
No, I think that China maybe will call and say, well, we're upset with the tariffs, and maybe they want to get something a little bit in order to get TikTok approved. Who knows?
Is there plans underway to speak to Xi?
I have no knowledge of that, but that's the kind of thing.
On Israel, can you give...
We discussed this yesterday. Trump clearly seemed to think that TikTok would help spread propaganda for him. But how did he expect his meeting with the CEO of TikTok to prevent China from retaliating with their own tariffs? I honestly can't understand what he was thinking, because everything that's happened is the complete opposite of what he anticipated. And now we're seeing skyrocketing recession fears and markets crashing. Even Fox News, yes, the very same Fox News that usually pushes his narrative, is reporting on how disastrous this situation really is.
Morning, everyone. China responds to Trump's tariffs, and the market sells off again. Starting April 10th, China will apply a 34% tariff on all imported goods from the United States. Thursday was the worst day for stocks since March 2020, and very early this morning, prices were falling again. Then, around 6 a.m. Eastern, the China news hit, and stocks doubled their losses. Now, we don't know if other countries will retaliate in the same way. We don't know the effect on corporate profits. We don't know the effect on inflation. Talk about uncertainty. The Dow set to lose about 970 points at the opening bell. The S&P 500, 123. The Nasdaq down about 455. Plenty of reading.
China is, unsurprisingly, retaliating, and that's a big reason why the markets keep crashing. Now, the odds of a recession are up to 60%, a huge jump from the 1% chance at the end of Biden's presidency. Remember when everyone was certain we were heading into a recession during Biden's time in office? But then what happened? We saw a booming economy. Fast forward, and now people thought the Trump presidency would lead to this great, thriving economy, yet here we are. It's not just liberals or pundits pointing this out either. Even members of Trump's own administration are acknowledging the mess. Marco Rubio, right here.
I don't think it's fair to say economies are crashing. Markets are crashing because markets are based on the stock value of companies who today are embedded in modes of production that are bad for the United States.
They have to admit it. Even Marco Rubio is saying it. I guess you know that thing about a about a broken clock is pretty right. Even they know it's the reason that Trump is panicking so much and trying to play tough when we know he's freaked out. On Truth Social, Trump wrote, "China played it wrong. They panicked the one thing they cannot afford to do." What do you mean it's the one thing they can't afford to do? Are you saying that them putting tariffs on American goods is something they can't afford to do? Because it'll cost their consumers more, because tariffs are a tax on consumers. Because if that's what you're saying, then maybe stop with the tariffs that are a tax on American consumers. Maybe we can't afford it. I see all these tweets from MAGA. We saw Harris Faulkner say it's patriotic to pay more because of Donald Trump. Someone saying, "Oh, you don't need that new iPad. You don't need, to get a new refrigerator. You don't need a new car. Those are wants be a patriot suffer because of Donald Trump. Lose your job." It's insanity. What MAGA is trying to defend right now, they just can't. And it's why we see slowly but surely even some of Donald Trump's most loyal sick fans admitting the truth. They're panicked.
What President Trump is initiating here, this is a long-held belief that he believes that tariffs will correct those problems. But what's also indisputable is the markets are down about 8% in just 2 days, and I'm getting all kinds of reaction from businesses, farmers in Wisconsin that are highly concerned about what's happening. So those are the facts. I don't know, all I can really do is kind of report the reality to the administration, let them know, how these actions are impacting my constituents, and it'll be pretty much up to President Trump and his administration to determine exactly how long they're going to go down this road, when they can start negotiating with our trading partners. Obviously, some gains, $5 to $6 trillion of investment has been committed. That's what President Trump claims. Some of our trading partners have lowered tariffs. So, I just can't predict how this is going to turn out here. It's a bold, risky move.
It's the uncertainty that's hurting the market as well.
This feels like one of the lowest points for Trump and MAGA, which is hard to believe, especially given everything we've seen. It's striking that more Republican senators are speaking out against him now than they did after January 6th. Not that we're trying to make comparisons, but even Ted Cruz, who was quick to defend the insurrection, said yesterday that he's not sure about these tariffs. This is the moment he draws the line. After all the chaos and damage, this is the issue that makes him realize Trump might have gone too far. It's almost unbelievable that it's taken this long for them to acknowledge that he's been undermining the country with every move, only benefiting himself and his wealthy friends. But even those friends aren't making out well. Many of them have lost billions since Trump's inauguration, which in a way makes it a bit more satisfying. The economy is in free fall, and the situation is a complete disaster, all thanks to Trump. Ari Melber did an excellent job explaining how the entire economy is being affected by this mess. In this clip right here.
A giant tax on Americans, as his former VP Mike Pence put it today. Numbers do not lie. We always try to show you the facts here and lead with the facts. And while some numbers are so bad that we can all reasonably agree it's not a good thing, it's a bad thing, I want to begin not with my observation or Nicole's or what we've discussed in plain English, but the numbers that show these are the most damaging tariffs in a century. And this is now, today, the largest stock slide since the global pandemic first arrived in President Trump's first term.
Markets look set to sell off as Donald Trump imposes the steepest U.S. import levies in a century.
I don't think there's a single positive take on this. This is all just bad.
Stocks set to wipe out nearly $2 trillion in market value.
Taking a plunge as investors react to the sweeping tariffs.
The world was yesterday sort of bracing for a bazooka, but Trump decided he was going to go to Chicago way, and he dropped an economic Moab.
And they are going to turn it upside down, and I think 50-50 into a recession.
Markets tanking. Experts warning of a recession which would be self-inflicted by a new president in the beginning of the term, almost unheard of. In fact, to find a stock slide this bad, as mentioned, you have to go beyond any of the normal volatility. You have to go beyond the inflation-plagued Biden term. And you have to go back to that unusual moment, which we all shared together, when the world began to grasp that it was facing a global pandemic in COVID. The market is a collection of companies and people reacting to events, and it began to quickly absorb how bad the pandemic was going to be, and that was the last time we saw this large a drop. Stocks suffer biggest one-day wipeout in value since that March 2020 pandemic is the Wall Street Journal's headline today, a kind of a Bible for Wall Street. You can see the steep plunge in the combined drop there among the 500 largest companies. Those are the biggest companies that trade publicly. And you can see the reaction quite clear to the Trump tariff announcement, these new tariffs that escalate what was already a costly trade war. It is hard to put the numbers, which I told you is how we're leading tonight, so you can just remember some of the basic math, but it's hard to actually put them in perspective. I could tell you that that is a sudden, seismic 4.8% drop in all of those stocks, the 500 stocks traded on S&P, or I could estimate the value. It's a rough number, but it is a big one. That drop constitutes, in response to Trump's plan, which he was warned against, over $2 trillion lost here. Similar story on the Dow, down about 4%. The other broad stock exchange, the NASDAQ, even worse, plummeting 6%. This is the math. Numbers don't lie. These are the new Trump tariffs, which, as many people warned, many experts warned, and many Trump allies, Republicans, Wall Street veterans warned, are now sinking every market index, battering U.S. stocks. If you look at the measure that includes more companies, they're actually hit the worst. In other words, I mentioned that 4% was trillions. The 2000 index of the companies that include smaller companies located in other parts of the country, etc., they're actually taking it the worst. And there's a lot of Trump voters and, frankly, a lot of people in general affected. But that's down 21% from its market high. These tariffs from Trump are escalating the trade war to new heights. They're guaranteeing more countermeasures in the trade war as they hit every country, big or small, rich or poor. Take one conservative magazine that tracks this very closely, The Economist. They call it now Ruination Day, showing President Trump quite literally sawing the U.S. off the map. A self-inflicted wound, isolating us from the rest of the global economy. It's a contrast from a few months back under Biden, when The Economist, which is a right-leaning kind of pro-corporate but internationally objective magazine, that's what they say they are, commented that at that point.
So I guess this is what happens when you have for a president. Gosh, it's not great. It's not great. Folks, I really don't know what to say at the end of this one. This is why Trump doesn't get to be everything that you want him to be. Not you, of course you knew what he would be, which is a fascist, and so many people saying that's not what Trump really meant a couple weeks and months ago. Oh, he's not really going to do that. He would never actually do that. He's just saying that really believe the man. He's a liar. But when he says something that's going to be damaging, believe that. And we're going to call that thing out if you want to support that. As always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. Until next time, I'll see you soon.